But the more clips I see from this FCS video, the more intrigued I am. It's only half an hour long, and I've got about half an hour before I have to go to work. So I figured we'd watch it and yeah, see what they're on about. So the video we're going to be watching is from Used Surf. I like Used Surf's YouTube channel. I watch a little bit of their stuff. It's crazy that they've only got 7,000 viewers. They cover a lot of different stuff. If you're into surfing, surf tech, surf news, they have 469 videos for you at this point. So loads of them. But the one we're going to watch today is this one down here. They actually did 2 FCS talks, but we're going to watch the second one, which actually has the FCS people in it, the reps. And I think there's some stuff in here worth looking at. As per usual, if the audio is no good, let me know and I'll tweak it, but hopefully you'll hear it just fine, and we'll see what they've got to say, and see what I've got to say back.
Welcome to Used Surf. I'm Eddie. I'm with FCS. Also John.
Nice to meet you
We
guys.
have Yuji, who's our in marketing. Brent is our local sales rep. A lot of people don't know this. The founders of FCS started their business with a Gorilla Grip. They started making grit back in the early 80s, right? At the same time that Herbie Fletcher right here in San Clemente was creating Astrodeck, the Gorilla Grip was the Aussie brand, right? It was the only brand that, if you go back and look at those Wave Warrior moves, all the Aussie.
Look at those boards. That's unreal. Holy shit, what a photo. That's so sick. You could spend ages going through all of them. Look at that shirt. Holy crap. Wow.
Had Gorilla Grip, all the Americans had Astrodeck. Fast forward a couple years, the owners, hardcore surfers from Australia, they saw a guy walking around the beach with those plugs in his board. One of the owners went up to him, was like, what is this? Got the explanation. All the money that they were making on Gorilla Grip, they dumped into this, and they're like, we need to do this. We need to make a removable fin system. And that's where it started. So some of you older guys might remember the G, like G3, G5, G7. That was the Gorilla. So that's where that G came from. So there's been a few iterations. So those original owners sold the business. Currently, about 9 years ago, a company called Gowings bought surf hardware. They own a bunch of different companies in Australia. It's actually one of the oldest companies in all of Australia. It's like the 25th oldest company. It goes back to 1865. Still family run, 5 generations. So the owner now, a guy named John Gowings, is just a crazy outdoorsman, loved the brand, and yeah, put it into their portfolio. So this is kind of a little iteration of where the plugs started and then where they went to. So that's our X2 plug. So that was the original. It was a 2-tab system. That actually, those plugs went in the board after it was glassed. So the boards got glassed and then drilled holes in the.
I've never seen these devices. I remember years ago when I was first setting up Small Kind Ding Repairs, and I watched what's he called? Lord of the Dings, who's now big on Instagram, but he had a YouTube channel and he was using these things, and I wanted them so bad. I've still never seen or been offered one in my whole life. And same with the little dams that they would put around the plugs when they pour the resin. Never seen them in real life. I've used Blue Tack as a replacement before, but these things are mysterious.
Board and then sunk resin, sunk the plugs. That's how that started. Next version was Fusion. So still the 2-tab fin. That was a pre-glass. Boards routed out, the fin boxes, and then the plugs are dropped before the whole glassing. Then
so I believe they're discontinuing or have discontinued the Fusions now, which is a real shame. I think that's FCS's best plug from an install perspective, from a functional perspective. I really like the Fusion plugs. I rate them very highly. I've got a few. I'll have to send you one. Yeah, Rob, I'd be super keen to see one. If you've got some laying around, it'd be cool to lay eyes on them. I definitely, it's not like I need them now. Like, I've not had them ever, so I just work without them, but I'd be interested to see them.
FCS2 came out. FCS2's been around for 12 years now. And then this FCS2 Essential, this is being launched right now. So Jonathan will go through some of the details around the plug.
Shapers spend a lot of time dialing their board. We listen to the shapers and we try to make sure that their board is going to perform the way they want to. We created different angles on all our plugs because when you route in the plug into the board, there's different contours on the bottom of the board. Concaves, right? V-bottoms. So when you put a plate on there to route out your cavity, cavity, you can't really put it flush. You can't have it flat because the bottom of the board is not flat. So with the concaves, typically which every board has nowadays, we're going to use a 9-degree plug. That fin is walking around. You can see that it's angled. So when we put the plug inside the board in the cavity, we're going to have the degrees already set into the plug.
That plug in his hand, I'm really excited to see it. I'm pretty sure that's the plug, Malcolm. That's the one in his hand there. Also, who are the people in the crowd here? I can't imagine my local surf shop having a brand like FCS come to do a talk and going, if I'm if I'm honest.
That tells us is that every time you change fin from fin, the degree of the fin is going to be the same designated by the shaper. So if you have a board that wants a 7-degree angle, because that's what the shaper feels how his board should ride, it's going to be true every time. We can swap out every fin of FCS, it's going to be the same. That's a very good thing because, again, we want to achieve the speed of the desired by the shaper, and we don't change the angles of fin by the bottom of the board. We have a 5 degrees for a V-bottom. So when you have a V-bottom, your plates are going this way to route out, so you're going to tilt it this way. So a lot of common degrees in surfboards, a thruster is going to be a 6 degrees to 6.5 to 7. Also the 5 degrees we use for quad rears. The setup of a quad board is going to be like a 6.5 to a 3.5 or 4. So you're going to use a 5 degree in the back. Then we have the center fin, which is at 0 degrees. It's always going to be 0 because we have a center fin. It took us a lot of engineering to think about this to make sure that what the shaper is producing and given to his surfer, that it is true to what he designs. He doesn't want to have a board go out with the wrong fin angle so that the board doesn't perform. So then you guys think that the shaper doesn't make a board that's good enough for you. Also, in designing the FCS, all our plugs actually, from the original all the way through, because this is plastic and resin don't really bond very well. They do, but they can peel off. So we all have grooves within all our plugs, except these two, they had a high density foam.
This is super important and one of the big reasons that I wanted to watch this video. So keep in mind what he just said. Resin doesn't bond well to plastic. That's very true. Epoxy, poly, they don't bond well to plastic. If you saw my video on fixing a soft top, that was one of the big reasons why it's so hard to fix soft tops, because they have so many plastic components that resin just doesn't bond to. Malcolm, while I try to trust my shaper, they have to interpret what I think I want versus what they build, and while most of the time it's close, sometimes it's way off the mark. Yeah, this is the age-old argument of futures versus FCS. Should the angle of your fin be up to the shaper based on how he thinks you surf or how you should surf, or you, the surfer, who's going to have this board for years to come, should you be able to mix and match and experiment? I'm definitely a futures guy. I think that's a big benefit of futures, but I also understand why shapers would want that level of control over their boards. But I mean, in 5-6 years, those shapers have probably forgotten they've even made the board. So yeah, then what business is it of theirs, I guess, would be the argument. But yeah, in his hand over here is foam, high density PU foam, and in his hand here is just pure plastic box. So because resin doesn't bond well to plastic, they put this foam sleeve on the box, and then you get a foam to foam bond as opposed to a foam to plastic bond, which just isn't the greatest bond. Take note of this, because this is a key point.
Foam with resin bonds really well. However, on this one in Essential, we removed the foam, but we still kept all these ridges so that it has a bite. It has a really strong bite inside the cavity of the surfboard.
So let's just recap what he's just said. Resin doesn't bond well to plastic, so we made a box where there's foam. Our new improved box, he didn't say improved, but I'm guessing they would claim it, we've taken the foam away, and we've just made it out of a product that we know resin doesn't bond well to. And to mitigate that, we've put a bunch of grooves in it, but if the resin doesn't stick to the grooves well anyway, then what's the point? This is...
Plugs doesn't rip out as easy. Go ahead.
Same routing system for the new?
Yes, correct. So no different, same plate, same bit, everything.
Do you make like 6.25?
We only...
So this is one of the main reasons I wanted to watch this. because for years now, shapers, ding repairers, backyarders, all of us have had two options when it comes to buying FCS's product. We can buy FCS2 boxes, which look like this. I don't know what this website is. I just found it on the Googles. So this is an FCS2 box here, and on the side here, this is a 3D render, but this is all foam here. And these boxes are pretty expensive, especially here in New Zealand. They're pricey as. But they've got the foam to foam bond, so they're kind of worth the money. At least if for someone like me who's guaranteeing a job, guaranteeing work to a customer, I don't want my box or my repair to rip off or rip out. If I'm shaping a board, I don't want my fin boxes falling out. So that's what we use. Shapers and ding repairers have had another option for a long time, which on this website, it's called FCS2 Economy Plugs. So this is not an FCS product. It has the FCS stamp on it. They've put the logo on it, but I can buy these from wish.com, I can buy them from Temu, I can buy them from Alibaba. They're insanely cheap. I can actually get them for like 30 cents a set. I was given a set years ago, but I never dared use them. So these ones are all plastic, no foam. If you're ever buying a surfboard with FCS 2 plugs in it, one of the key tells, because you can't see what's in the board obviously, but on the top of the box you'll notice here that there's lines running from one end of the box to the other. Maybe these are an official plug. They look official, right? But I can buy these cheap knockoff versions, super cheap, way cheaper than what I buy FCS boxes for. So you see these vertical lines running up and down, whereas, how do I go out of this? Here we go. Whereas with the legitimate FCS2 boxes, you can see on top, they don't have those vertical lines. They have these little hexagons, and that's that high density foam kind of pushing through the plug. So if you're ever buying a surfboard and your FCS2 boxes don't have these little circles or hexagons in them, I would personally avoid that board, because they're using cheap, nasty, plastic FCS2 boxes. They've probably bought them from Temu, and resin doesn't bond to plastic. And that's why, personally, I choose, and I know other shapers and other ding repairers, we choose to spend more money on these boxes because they're a better product than the cheap crap we could buy for like 30 cents a piece from wish.com, Temu, Alibaba, all the rest. But from what I've seen, and going back to Use Surf's page here, so this is a short of this video that we're watching. This is their new box, the FCS2 Essential. And this is all plastic. It has vertical lines running one end to the other. So in my eyes, they're now trying to sell us Temu. FCS created the FCS2 box. Chinese factories ripped off their product and started mass producing them super cheap, but all plastic, poor quality. And now FCS2 have ripped off these Chinese factories and are now trying to sell these poorly made, poorly performing, cheap Chinese knockoffs of their own product. It blows my mind. If this is, and this is what's in his hand. So when he's standing up there in this video talking, he has that black box is this cheap, nasty plastic doo-doo. So my first question would be, if FCS2 are going to start selling these, I'm guessing at a pretty big markup, why would I not just start buying my boxes from Alibaba and Wish and Temu? Because I can get them for like 30 cents a pop. These are like $30 a pop. So if they're going to replace these with these, man, the choice is simple. For a business like mine, I'm going to buy thousands of these cheap 30 cents ones from Temu. I'll stick with futures, thanks. Yeah. Bro, I don't blame you. I'm a futures guy as well. Unless a customer specifically requests FCS2s, I'm putting futures in my boards every day of the week. I think the FCS2 boxes are, unfortunately, aside from the lock-in system, I think they're a poorly designed box. They're too shallow, and the footprint is too wide, which just encourages them to fold over, especially on twin fins. And not that futures don't fold over on twin fins as well, but I think just the footprint of these FCS2 boxes, they're prone to rolling over, even on thrusters as well. Bob, for futures, is there really any difference between the real deal and the Ali and Wish ones? So, good question. To be honest, I don't 100% know. I've seen knockoff futures boxes that I've pulled out of boards. I couldn't notice any immediate difference other than I'm fairly certain futures boxes are CNC'd. As opposed to made in a mold. So when it comes to like fit, in theory, every futures box should be identical because they're being CNC'd. And even with like, that's one of the big benefits with their longboard boxes versus other longboard boxes, which are sort of separate parts, pressed in a mold, clicked together, they can break apart, whereas the futures ones are one solid piece. So there's a strength aspect there as well. So yeah, but I honestly don't know. I haven't noticed anything that stands out to me as much like FCS2 boxes versus the Alibaba FCS2 boxes. I'm pretty sure the ones my local supplier sells are Ali ones. Yeah, you'll be able to tell because they'll have those vertical lines running from the front of the box here to the back of the box, as opposed to those little hexagons. I was actually working on an Aloha board last week, fin box replacement, and when I pulled the box out, it was one of these. There's a South African shaper who sells boards here in Mangawhai, and all of his FCS2 boxes are those cheap Alibaba ones. It's not uncommon, and I kind of don't blame them because they are so cheap. But they fail because resin doesn't stick to plastic. As this guy said before he announced his all-plastic box. What are they doing?
We make 4 different degrees. We make a 9, a 5, a 3, and a 0. When I'm saying 6.5, it's on the fin. So when your fin installer is going in here, like for example, this is a keel fin. This is probably going to be set at like 5 degrees, kind of more up and right. It's not going to be set too far tilted. So that's where those degrees come from. They can vary. It's up to the shaper.
The fins are always at 0.
I'll say they're always perpendicular. Like
always flat.
Yeah.
Yes.
All of
so
our
the
fins are at
angle's
0.
inside the box.
Correct.
Exactly.
When they glass the board, they have a dummy fin. They have a jig with the degrees, and so when they're setting the fin, they kind of have the jig, and they go 6.5. Then they know, and then it stays there.
Yes.
And it gets glass, and then every fin, like you were saying, will now be at 6.5.
6.5.
Because they're always at 0. So it's inside.
Exactly.
You know when you go to an auction and the auctioneers like paid someone to be in the audience and bump up the bidding? I reckon they've done that with this guy here. He's an undercover shaper, and he's been put there to ask questions. That's my guess.
So for example, what's important for the degrees for you? If a board is going to be too stiff, so let's say you're riding your board, you got a lot of drive, but it's really stiff to turn. Sometimes it could be not the fin, it could be the angles on the fin. It could be set at 5. So at 5, imagine it's like kind of straight up. So when the water hits, it's going to push a lot harder. You're going to get a lot of drive, but it's going to be harder for you to turn. When you have a lot more tilt, like this, the water hits it and just kind of bounces off. So you don't get as much.
So he's kind of shitting on his own company here because you've got a board that's too stiff. Maybe it's the cant angle in the fin, but with our system, that board is that board. Your only other option is to pull those boxes out and reset it with the cant angle you need to loosen your board up. Whereas with futures, you would just switch fins. So I don't think he should have said that.
much drive. You can get a shape that's you like a lot, but you can be like, hey, I'm having a hard time turning.
And does that drive make it like looser?
If you decrease the degrees on the fin, you're going to get more drive and it's going to make it stiffer. If you widen it, if you go from a 6.5 to a 7.5, you're going to go slower, but you're going to be able to turn your board a lot easier. So let's say you have your board that's really dialed and you go to your shaper, you're like, man, I can go down the line really well, but even after changing my fins, it's still really stiff. Can we play around with the degrees of my fin? You know, let's say he set it at 5.5, you can go 6. Colo, he went through that for a while too. He was
So you got to buy a whole new board. This is not a good discussion.
almost going from 7 to a 5 for a long period because you just want a lot of drive to boost airs, like in beach breaks. So that's something you can do.
Yeah, just on the cant thing, the main difference is our fins are always straight up. So because our cant's built into the plug, right? So we leave that variable to the shaper. The shaper understands the curves in the board, so he knows how that fin should sit. The alternative plug, they have their cant built into the fin. So with that, you know, you go get a driver or whatever, we'll say sub driver because Kolohe was just here. You have the FCS system. The design of the board has been trusted to Matt, right? And how that fin should be placed because he knows best based off the curves in his board. You get to play with the template of the fin, but once you play with the single tab system, you're dealing with the cant of the fin as well as a template. So you're changing 2 variables at a time every time you swap fins. So it just becomes a bit more complicated, right? You could say, well, it's just more options. It's like, yes, but also I believe, and I believe the FCS system believes that that variable should be left to the designer of the board, the shaper.
So
I kind of agree. I mean, I get it, but I like his little plug for Futures there as well. And I don't know, is Futures right? Finn's Adventures, you would probably know this better than me. I think Futures is the future. I believe you're correct. But he said that if you're changing your Futures fins, not only are you tweaking your cant angle, but you're also tweaking the template of the fin as well. But do they make... I'm trying to think, like, I don't know, Rustovich has a Futures fin. So can I buy the Rustovich in 5 degrees or 9 degrees? Like, can I buy the same template with a different cant angle? Or does the Rustovich only come with the one cant angle? I actually haven't looked into it that deeply.
our fins are different because our hook is in the front. So what happens is that your leading edge of your fin is always going to be set right here, and then we have the whole tail of it. So we don't have to sacrifice anything behind the plug, meaning we have continuous drive, meaning we don't have to alter the fin to fit inside a box, like this one. So imagine this. This is the size of your keel, and suddenly I had to chop it off to make it fit inside the box, into the system. No knock on them, it's just the way it was designed. Their hook is in the back and it has to go in the front and then they screw it. You got this awesome fish that you want all this drive, but you got a fin that you lost a little bit of drive. That's okay.
I mean, they could not cut it and just extend it, I guess. I would note too, I just saw a thing on Instagram the other day about it. If you're going to ride FCS2 fins, they say you don't need a grub screw because it's a lock-in system. I would always recommend putting in the rear grub screw because, like he said, their fins lift out of the box from the rear. And the majority of customers, I would say, who have lost a fin in the surf, an FCS2 fin, it's actually been their leash going over that back trailing edge of the fin, and the tension on their leash has actually been enough to pop the fin out, and then the fin's just dangling in the box, and then it falls out completely. So once your FCS2 fin is in, I would put the rear grub screw in. The front one doesn't really matter, but because the box doesn't lift out from the front, but I would always lock it in with that back one. Usually it's one cant, Bob. Yeah, that's kind of, I don't think I got I mean, I ride Futures, and I don't think I've ever had an option for different cants for the fins I was looking at. I know, for example, the new Machado Seaside quads are a different cant than the older ones. Interesting. All right. And Fin Adventures, I always screw in FCS2 fins. Wise. very wise. I the one that lets them down is they have that longboard fin that's got that same lock-in mechanism. I've had so many pissed off customers who have lost those longboard fins that kind of lock into the box because there is no way you can attach a grub screw to that, and those are expensive fins.
Certain people, maybe not for me, maybe for you.
So one of the things that we hear and I see when I'm on the road,
Yep.
and I'm sure a lot of it's operator error, but it's when people go and clip that fin in, the back of edge of the fin digs through the fiberglass. Like,
Yes.
we get a ton of boards in here where that was a repair.
Little spider crack, yep.
Yeah, so I'm just curious.
So again, when we built this system, we over-engineered it, bottom line. Unfortunately, in the surf industry, no knock on us, the guys that
Over-engineered it. It's
work on in making a board, bless their hearts, there's not much money to make. They get paid piecework. They want to make as many installs as they can, as short amount of time to maximize their profit. So sometimes they get complacent, they get a little bit lazy, or they get tired. With that, this install, they could route it the cavity a little bit deeper so that it sits farther deep in the front and in the back. And especially because a lot of boards have tail rockers, so it's hard to follow that contour again that I was talking about with the plate. So when that plug sits a little further back, when we snap in our fin, yes, it can dig and create a spider crack. That is something, that I go to the factories and I watch the guys and I ask them, hey guys, can we be a little more calm here and just
This fucker's blaming the glasses and the shapers because their product puts holes in boards. MJ was the one who sent me this video, and he told me this was said, and I was so outraged that he would say this. Number one, this guy going to a factory, I don't know dick about this guy, but I imagine it's much like when you're on a building site and the safety foreman comes in. Guy works in an office all day, and then he comes in and starts telling you how to use a nail gun. So he's saying that if you've got a board, which is insanely common, I agree with the used surf guy who asked the question, you click the fin in, and the back of the fin, because they haven't cut it the way Futures cut theirs, it punches through the fiberglass behind the fin box. And he's saying the reason that happens is because the shaper, the glass of the box guy, has gotten lazy on a Friday and had one too many beers and installed the box too deep. Mate, I have a whole video which I pulled up in anticipation of this video and this point. Where the hell is it? It is right there. Futures versus FCS. And which one's better? Which is better? And the overwhelming moral of this story is that FCS's systems are cheaper, for sure, which is great for backyarders, people doing stuff in their garage, but it leaves the install process up to a lot of guesswork because they don't have a system that precisely measures something like how deep are you installing the box. It's literally done by eyeball as you adjust the router, and you've got the plug on top of your jig, which is on top of the router, and you tweak it until it looks like the bit is lined up with the top of the flange, but you might be holding it on a slight angle that way, or that way, or that way. It's literally left up to eyeball, whereas a system like Futures has the Timmy tool, so you can measure the depth perfectly, and you don't just do it by eyeball, but you get an audible click when that Timmy tool hits the router jig, and so you know every time your Futures depth is going to be perfect. So this fucker right here is blaming shapers for installing their boxes too deep, but they don't provide a system to allow shapers to know beyond their eye level. Like, how is every box going to be the same if we're relying on a human eyeball? It's just not going to be. So that's an absolute cop-out, I would think. And when he's talking about the Futures fins versus the FCS fins, and if Futures have cut off the back, my Rustovich keels are the same, so that trailing edge is cut off, so I can put those fins in, or even if the fin ripped out somehow, it's not going to punch a hole behind the box because they've cut that flange on that trailing edge. Whereas even if you install an FCS box perfectly, the back of their fin is only going to be a millimeter above the glass. So why not just chamfer that fin off? For fuck's sake. Jack Black, I use FCS2s and they're doing a good job of convincing me to use futures. It's, bro, yeah, it's just so wild to blame the shapers and this guy coming into, I can't imagine this guy coming into somebody's factory and being, oh, can we clean that up a little? Can we do this a little better? Bro, what are you talking about? 180 auto. I would argue that the quick installability is what actually makes the system weak. Try taking out your fins after every session or to match the conditions and see what happens after a season. I would agree with that as well. So that video I watched the other day on Instagram, I should have tracked it down and pulled it up. But she was saying, because her whole thing is she's a surf influencer on Instagram, so she's always running back to the beach, popping fins out, putting new ones in and trying different stuff. Perfect. So good for her. But she was saying to everyone who's not a surf influencer doing that, use grub screws, otherwise you'll lose your fins. But you're right in the sense that every time she wrenches those fins out of those boxes, and they are super tight, you're tweaking that box and the surrounding fiberglass really hard. And every time you do that, it's got to weaken the box just a little bit. When I take them out at work, I have a rubber mallet, so I beat the back, like the trailing edge of the fin, with a rubber mallet to knock the fin out. But if I was doing that 3 times, 4 times a session, eventually I would bust the glass around the box for sure. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't think anyone ever asked for a quick take out and change my fin option, did they? Maybe pro surfers asked for it, but did anyone normal ask for it?
Install it correctly, because we do get spider cracks, we do get complaints, and once you get that spider crack, water gets in, softens the foam, and in a plug you will have a blowout. When we first designed this one over here, we wanted our guys actually to install it and have the fiberglass cover it all, and then come back with a router and clean it out. Not allow the sander to come down and dig through the fiberglass, lose all the fiberglass so that they could open the cavity to have your fin insert. I didn't want a fin guy to come back and try to use a router on plastic on a finished board to clean it out, just in case it was going to, be problems. Because if they're not doing a proper install, just dropping it, spider crack, water gets in, softens the foam, and in a plug you will have a blowout. When we first designed this one over here, we wanted our guys actually to install it and have the fiberglass cover it all, and then come back with a router and clean it out. Not allow the sander to come down and dig through the fiberglass, lose all the fiberglass so that they could open the cavity to have your fin insert. I didn't want a fin guy to come back and try to use a router on plastic on a finished board to clean it out, just in case it was going to, be problems. Because if they're not...
Wait, what? What? Does anyone else understand that? He didn't want, which I would agree with him, but other people there wanted, instead of sanding the box open, you would route the box open? Is that what I'm hearing? On a finished board? I'm tripping.
Not doing a proper install, just dropping it. I couldn't imagine them handling a router afterwards just to clean out the fiberglass. Look, all fin systems, most of the time, the failure is going to be because it was a poor install. Meaning there could have been not enough resin, or the sander came in, because it was so deep, he had to go in and sand really hard to actually have this open up.
I've seen when people shape boards face.
He did it again. He's blaming the shapers for their flawed system.
The failure is going to be because it was a poor install. Meaning there could have been not enough resin, or the...
All right, not enough resin. So that was another thing that came up with, where the hell is it, with this video I did. So the benefit of futures is, as we know, I can't really put the mouse on it, but on the futures boxes, where this arrow is pointing here, we have these little holes, which means when I'm installing a futures box, I could fill my route. If my route's that deep, I could fill it to the very top with resin, and then I can still push that box in and all of the excess resin is going to flow out of those holes. And then once there's the perfect amount of needed resin, the resin will stop flowing out of those holes, and I just wipe the excess away. So I know that I can put too much resin in the route, push down, I'm going to be left with the perfect amount of resin. The problem with both the fusions in this thumbnail here and the futures is that there is no release point for the resin. So if I put too much resin in the route, I actually physically can't push the box in. I have to pull resin out with my mixing stick or my squeegee or a brush, because I'm just pushing against resin that has nowhere to go. So I believe the reason it's so common, and he's right, a big reason for FCS2 failure is not enough resin. But the reason there's not enough resin is because the person installing the box knows if they put too much resin in, they won't physically be able to push the box into the board because there's just no escape route for that resin. So they try to put the perfect amount in, but they put too little, and because of their system that they've designed, there is no way, zero way, to know if you have the perfect amount of resin or if you have not enough resin. The only thing you can tell from installing an FCS2 box or a Fusion box is if you've got too much resin, and you know that because you actually can't get the box in the route, because that route is so tight, the resin can't squeeze out of the edges. So again, he's blaming guys for, oh, you didn't put enough resin in the route, that's why our product failed, because you fucked it up. Well, no, give us an escape route so we can fill the route up with too much resin and then eject enough resin so that we're left with the perfect amount. So I don't think, maybe some factories out there, but I really don't think, and I see it all the time, boards get brought in, busted FCS2 box, you pull the box out, there's bugger all resin in there. I don't think these guys are deliberately underusing resin to save money or anything like that. I think they're trying to put the perfect amount of resin in so that they can get the box in. But there's just no way to tell how much, and once the box is in, you just don't know. You just have to, fingers crossed, I hope, that's enough resin in that route, because I can't see in the route, and there's no holes in the side of the box to help me identify. If I push a futures box in and no resin comes out of those holes, then I haven't put enough resin in. I got to pull the box out, put more resin in, push the futures box in until resin starts flowing out of those flange holes. And then I know, all right, I did the right job. I'm confident there's enough resin in the hole. So again, this prick's blaming these poor, as he said, underpaid glasses, shapers, because their design is just flawed. And their one saving grace, which was the takeaway from this video, is that, well, their system is cheap. So for backyarders, perfect. Go with FCS2, because the Futures setup and kit is expensive. But the Futures setup and kit is guaranteed good result, same result every time. The FCS system is not that. It's just cheap.
The sander came in, he had, because it was so deep, he had to go in and sand really hard to actually have this open up.
I've seen when people shape boards.
And again, if someone's installing the box too deep, that's because they're eyeballing the depth of their route a bit, because you don't provide any method other than eyeball to install the box at the guaranteed right depth.
There's a little bit of tape on the top of it.
So yeah, so usually what they have to do in all fin systems, they have to close these, because this is a pre-install, because it's you're putting it before you glass the surfboard, where this one was after, so you didn't have to worry about that. So now when you have a pre-install, you have to put these stickers over here so that the fiberglass and resin have to go over it. In the videos, you guys probably saw a little bit about our, we call them families of fins. So we start off from a super upright to a super raked out fin. So this is an upright fin over here. It's got more base and the tip doesn't draw out as much. Where this one is kind of a carver, it's really raky. So you have a decent sized base, but the tip keeps coming all the way through. And then we'll tell you where those fins follow to suit the type of surfing that you want to do. So over here we have the beach break, which is the reactor. It's kind of more upright. Once you identify where you surf and what type of fin you want, you can start here or here, and then you could go down and follow in the same family. Let's say if you like the reactor, you can go with a CI upright, which is kind of the same. Which, see, guys here in the shop probably suggest for you to start on a performer, which is an all-around fin. So basically you use this fin, the performer, just to get the feel. And then you come back to the guy like, oh, I was a little bit sluggish on my beach break. Okay, maybe you try the reactor because it's got a little bit more base, so it's going to give you a little bit more push down the line on a softer wave. Or if he's on a performer and he's like at a point break, he's like, well, it didn't have too much hold. I was coming out to the bottom onto my top turns, it wasn't holding as much. We have carver and accelerator, where this guy over here, when I was telling you, when you're trying to performer and it's sliding out or your top turns, you just loose it, you want to use a more depth in the rake. And then we have also the accelerator, which is for kind of a reef break or also point break. Kolohe likes it. His fin actually falls into the accelerator, but he uses it in all round conditions for him.
Yeah. The good news on this is that all of these fins lend themselves to these conditions that are pointed out here, the reef break, point break, kind of all around. But it doesn't mean that you can't use an accelerator on a beach break, or a point break fin on a beach break, or a beach break fin on a point break, right? They just, the subtle tweaks, it'll allow that. It's got the ways that it performs best in, but it still will work in all those other conditions. It's really well rounded. So it's really hard to make a bad decision. You really want to start with your size. Performer is a great place to start because it's the most balanced, really well rounded. And then after that, you can kind of start tweaking it from there. And on the packaging, it's all that information is listed, color coded, so it's really easy to find.
I feel like they're just trying to sell us fins at this point. Fins are a whole different. I was actually talking to Malcolm yesterday, one of the members. He's playing around with twinsers at the moment, rusty twinsers, and talking about fin position and trying to like loosen up longer boards or tighten up shorter boards. It's a whole different kettle of fish that I'm just not on board with. I just haven't looked deeply into fins. Some people are all about them and their knowledge is just insane.
Plastic and high quality in the same sentence, and it seems kind of contradictory, but but if I were going back to Nicaragua, went to the boom, I had PG Christensen's in my board because I knew I wanted fast and it's heavy water and I'm just coming off the bottom. So that's when I put a PG fin in, but I grew up in Newport, surf river jetties every day. I'm not riding PG fins. And I know Jonathan touched on the Neoglass and he used the word plastic and high quality in the same sentence. And it seems kind of contradictory, but to actually emphasize Jonathan's point, if you guys watch the Raglan contest and Felipe was on the twin fin, those were actually Neoglass MRs. That just kind of furthers a point. Like it does sound like, oh yeah, high quality plastic. It really is. It performs clearly at the highest level.
Yeah. He didn't want a stiffer fin. He didn't want a fiberglass MR just because it's too stiff. So with this fin, it has that little that flex, that little twang. And because he was using a wider board, he needed a bigger fin. And then he's like, okay, this feels really good. Well, we also make a Neo carbon. Instead of all fiberglass, this one has carbon fibers milled into the injection molding, so it makes it that much stiffer. And then the last one we have is the glass fiber, which we have a Mick Fanning, Fiber Fusion, and then we have the H4. Both have the same factory, Swiss made. We use the same resin 9 out of Germany, long strand fiberglass with some milled carbon in it. However, this process at the end, it's where all the technology goes into it. This is also a molded fin, but it's at the end where the robot comes and lays down this layer of carbon to actually create the properties of the flex that we want. On the Fiber Fusion, same thing. We actually use an actual fiberglass cloth that we have it lay down, infused into the fin after the fact, after it comes out of the mold. And this one actually has the most amount of rebound of all our fins. Basically, what it's saying is like, when you do in your bottom turn, it's going to spring back.
See all these flashy graphics and advertising and stuff. This is this is what a company can do when they start buying their knockoffs of their own product from wish.com and selling it to you as their product. They save a ton of money, and so now they have really cool flashy graphics that are very impressive, and I might have a seizure any minute now.
Back the most amount. It's going to come back the quickest at its neutral point. So it starts like this, it flexes, and then it swings back. And it's the fastest fin that we have that swings back naturally to its form.
And those will, little sneak peek into 2027, the whole Essential Series, Performer, Accelerator, Carver, Reactor, are going to come in that fiber fusion. So yeah, Yago was using that Mick at Spells, and Mick's been using it a ton. So yeah, getting really good response on that.
We rode both mix and a video. Our surfer favored that.
Yeah, the new fiber
majorly.
fusion.
Like
Yeah.
said, that's like game changer.
Yeah, no, it's super precise.
Out of all these fins that you see, every single one, these are only ones that come out 99.9% the same every time. There is no qualms about it. This one could be a little bit different. You know, it's
Everything on that wall is handmade.
Yep.
Our competitors, there's
Yep.
all some type of
hand touch. This one does not.
You guys talked a lot about how you have specific types of fins for point breaks, reef breaks, beak breaks, etc. For these kids living here in San Clemente and adults, you know, when you have a smaller day versus like
fin. So it kind of okay. Example on the twin fins.
I mean, I can't argue with their fins. I'm not gonna. Their fins look nice. They're great. I give them shit, but their fins look fine. My only qualm with FCS is their boxes. The fins look amazing. The factory looks amazing. Oh, here's that clicky in one that you'll lose in a week. I don't like those ones. Yeah, I can't argue with their fins. But I really wanted to watch this for the new box reveal, which I just find hysterical. And I just can't imagine it's a good business move. I wonder, because I know that, well, I don't know, but I heard that FCS got in some trouble because of all the tariff stuff in the US, and it was messing with their business and all the rest. I wonder if this has something to do with that, this new box. What do they call it? The Essential fin box. I wonder if it has something to do with that. The FCS2 Essential. Because why? They didn't even say it in the whole video, unless I've just skipped past it, but they never said, hey, we didn't like this about the FCS2 box original, so now we've come out with the FCS2 Essential, and that will fix this problem that we've been having. What was the problem? Why are you now doing this? I don't get it at all. I don't think it's a good business move, because, I mean, as long as they keep making the original box, I will continue to buy it as a business owner. But if they decide to replace the original with the Essential, I'm bringing Ali, and I'm getting my boxes from him, because it's just going to be so cheap. Cost too much to make. Yeah, that could be the problem. The problem is they don't have they don't have enough money. That could also be a problem as well. It just blows my mind. And they haven't even sold the Essential. I mean, maybe they haven't properly released it yet, and they're going to do a big media release or something like that. But they haven't sold me the Essential. It's not better than the original in any way. Self-admittedly, he said resin doesn't stick to plastic, so here's a new box that's all plastic, but it's alright, because we put some grooves in it. You know what else has grooves in it? The FCS2 original has grooves in it, but it's not all plastic. It's foam. I just don't get it. Maybe I'm missing something. I'm speechless. Do you think big brands will use the cheaper boxes but keep board prices the same? No one will ever lower their prices. There's no way. That just doesn't happen. And especially when it comes to surfboard shapers. I mean, it might be a different story for the big boys, Firewire and all that mob, where maybe they are in a financial position to lower their prices. They won't, but they could. But for your average shaper, man, if this becomes the option, I'm definitely going to be charging the same for a board I make, and I'm going to be taking that extra $50 profit. Gladly, I'm going to be taking it. So, yeah, unlikely you're going to end up with cheaper boards because they're using cheaper boxes. But like I said in the beginning, if you're looking at buying a board and it's got FCS 2 boxes in it, keep an eye out for these little circles. If it has these little circles, you've got the best possible FCS2 box you can get. If it doesn't have those little circles, and what you're looking at is vertical lines, that's vertical lines cut into plastic. And I don't know how well you can see it in the photo, but from this end of the box to that end of the box, it's just going to be thin vertical lines. And then you're looking at a cheap plastic knockoff box. Avoid the board. Or if you're talking to a shaper and it's got those boxes in it, say to him, I know that those boxes are not good boxes, so I want the board for $50 less or whatever it is. Crazy. I'm blown away by this whole video. Thank you to Use Surf for posting it, because it's been hysterical. Every clip I've seen from it, I've been like, what are they talking about? Anyway, I'm 20 minutes late for work, so I should go, guys, but I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed it. I think that's very funny. I hope they do another one. I hope they do one with futures. They've got FCS in there, and they certainly sell futures. I should check first to make sure they haven't already done one with futures. Go to Use Surf, check their videos out. They're cool. They test all kinds of stuff. They sell all kinds of stuff. Their shop is amazing. I would love to go visit and just look at all the boards. It's crazy. Donna Brink's in there. Yeah, definitely a channel worth checking out. And I think this is the first one I've live streamed where normally I would hit the subscribe button, but I am already subscribed to usesurf.com. Fuck work, let's go for a look at the beach. We could have a look. I hear there's a wave, Rory. Yeah, call me. I'd be keen for a surf if there's a wave. I hear there's a wave. Always enjoy your videos. Thank you for what you do. My pleasure, 180 Auto. Yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. And we'll do it again. I actually have a wish list of videos now. I don't know how to use it. Somewhere here there's a wish list, and I have been wish listing videos to live stream, so we will do it. Yeah, that's it. Give me a call, Rory. We'll go check the surf. Nice one, guys. Hope you're well. How do I stop the stream? Like that. Shoots! Choo-hoo!